Dino, thanks for being on the show again, dude.
You're welcome.
So for those of you that have followed me, you kind of know the deal, but Dino and I had recorded an episode shortly before COVID hit, and COVID hit, and the majority of the stuff we talked about had made no sense anymore. So we're back. It's 2.0, Dino 2.0. In a whole new landscape. I mean, business has changed tremendously. Very few companies, I think, have not been affected by COVID. And both of ours have definitely been affected by COVID, but we will get into that. We'll get into what new business is. For those that don't know who Dino is, who is probably not a lot of people. Dino, you're quite a familiar guy for all the right reasons in the community, but maybe you can just give a rundown of coming up and growing up and what got you to where we are here today.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to live in Kamloops my whole life, and we've seen a lot of changes in my 40 plus years, and it's been really cool to see how things have changed, how developments have changed, and how the downtown has changed. And since I was 18 years old, I've worked downtown at different businesses. I was part of the Kamloops Downtown Business Association. I was a summer student there at one point, and it's kind of come full circle now to be the president of the Downtown Business Association.
Cool.
But yeah, and it's been really cool to see, like, the market's changed drastically from when I was a kid, and there was bars spread out all over Kamloops. Now it's all kind of downtown. The streets, the developments of people fixing up shops and making them look a lot nicer, and stores that have been here for years, and new stores that are popping up, and new businesses that are coming to downtown. It's been fantastic for the downtown core. So it's been really neat to be, basically for over 20 years, be able to see how it's all changed and be part of the renaissance too with our Commodore and business in our building.
Right. I like how you said that. Part of the renaissance. That's a nice way to look at it. So high school, what high school did you go to?
I did junior high at Sahalee. I went to Stuart Wood for elementary school, so right downtown again.
Cool.
I grew up at the top of West Battle, and kind of have come full circle, and I bought a house in the area again, so I want to return there. And I just had such fond memories of growing up in that area, and it's nice
on West Battle.
On West Battle.
You just bought there?
Yeah.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so it'll be nice to kind of get back and kind of see. And I see, like, the neighborhood changed, because it was like there was a bunch of us as kids, and then for a long period of time, all the kids had gotten older and moved on, and there wasn't a lot of kids. But now I'm seeing a lot of kids returning to the neighborhood.
Right.
So it's kind of neat to see that, and
cool.
Having friends move into the neighborhood too. So it's like we're not the only ones there, and so it's going to be really cool to see all that to develop. And then I went to Sahalee for junior high, and then that was when you went to Cam High for your grade 11, grade 12 year, and that was a big part of who I was, and I was a Cam High till I die kind of guy.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to come around on the whole South Cam thing.
Yeah, no doubt.
But thanks to guys like you and JP, I did come around on it, and
right.
You guys have helped kind of bring back that Red Devils flair a little bit here and
Definitely.
there.
Yeah.
I think that went a long way to trying to get some of the alumni back and be a part of the program, because it was harsh for us, because it was like you just kissed away 100 years of tradition, and like how good the program was, and the program was great as Red Devils, right?
Yeah.
So it was hard to lose that. So.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, well, because I had done JP prior to South Cam, and even moving there, going down into the locker room, the football locker room, like it's steeped in tradition. It was a whole new game there. And I felt that from even the grade 12s or grade 11s and grade 12s at that time, they weren't all that happy with it. But then once you start winning a bunch, then people understand, well, two schools coming together actually is a great thing.
Yeah.
The program, the basketball program has seen great leaps and strides. Football has had ups and downs, but yeah.
But that, that's football in Kamloops has had its ups and downs. And like, it's really fun to watch what you guys are building at South Cam. And, like, I love being a part of it in the small way that I am, and helping out and doing things, because I feel like what you guys are doing is right. And it's about the kids, and it's about developing the kids. And that's what it should always be about. Right?
Yeah.
And, I just think you guys are doing a great job with that. So it's fun to see that.
We appreciate that. So on the football, okay, let's do a quick rewind. You graduate, you work around bars downtown, or
no, like initially I started working in restaurants, and
Okay.
you know, initially I worked at a restaurant called Pinocchio's, and I started there in high school, and
Right.
then I that's when I really got my love of wanting to work in the restaurant industry, and I
Right.
never would have thought of working in a bar. I was always going to be like, I'm going to own a restaurant one day. I'm not going to own a bar.
gotcha.
And after working at Pinocchio's for a while, I was like, well, I'm tired of working in a kitchen. I'm going to go work at Save On Food. So I went to go work at Overweighty at the time, and
Nice.
and then realized that wasn't the be all and the end all, and went back into working at a couple different restaurants all over town and bartending, and then becoming really good at bartending, and just kind of started doing that, and came back downtown to Kelly O'Brien's, then moved on to Escapes, which is where Carlos O'Brien's is now.
Right.
And then after Escapes, we were part of the crew that opened up the original Rivers, which is now where Noble Pig was.
Right.
And then from there, kind of left downtown and went and worked up on the hill at Urban Couch. And then worked as a beer rep, did a bunch of different things, worked in finance, and just kind of always gravitated back to the service industry. And,
Right.
you know, had an opportunity to start working at the Commodore before I bought into it, and
Right.
worked with Chris and Martin. And the point came where I was like, hey, you know, it's either I got to buy in or I got to move on. And they were very open to it. And so Chris and I ended up buying out Martin, and it was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. And I'm always super grateful to Chris for giving me that opportunity.
Right. Cool. So how long ago was that?
It was 13 years ago in February when we opened. And then about a year in, we started talking about purchasing. And so within a year and a half, we had bought Martin out.
Wow. So you were part of the Downtown Business Association as a summer volunteer.
Yeah.
When did you come on to the board? When did that all?
We were kind of going through a lot of transition at the Commodore, because we were opened as a restaurant and we wanted to convert to a nightclub. And as we were
Right.
going through those phases, you know, there was a lot of conversations with Gabe Pooler about, you know, we want the support of the Downtown Business Association. And it was kind of like, well, like, you have our support, but, you know, you should become a member of the association. So we joined the membership, and then I started going to meetings. And then kind of right after I ran for city council, it was like, hey, do you want to join the board as someone, because, you know, it'll be, you know, we like what your vision was for Kamloops. And so
Right.
I joined at that point and stayed on for years, and then outlasted everyone. So that's why I get to be president, I guess. I was one of the only ones that, well, not the only ones, but like a lot of people put their time in and then they moved
Yeah.
on. And I recognize that, like, you know, I'm going to own my business downtown. I'm going to own my building down here. So why aren't we working to make downtown a better spot for
Right.
everyone?
Well, I think the city of Kamloops as a whole can appreciate you for that and what you've done for the community. Well, let's speak on that. Like being a part of a board. You know, there's so many boards out there in the world. What do you think for new entrepreneurs or people that are thinking of, you know, what are the pros and cons of being a part of an association? Not necessarily just a part of the board, but an association as a whole.
Well, I think it's good in a lot of different facets. I think one of the big things is that you get to listen to the other businesses around you, because we're all very different. Like your business to my business, there's a little bit of overlap, but there's a lot of differences. Right. And when you sit in those meetings and you sit on those committees, you get to see, like, what's important to me as a restaurant might not be important to Jardine's as a clothing store, might not be important to the doctors and lawyers that have offices downtown. So it gives you a perspective of how everyone needs to work together to make it a vibrant downtown. And,
Right.
you know, there was a lot of events that don't benefit me downtown, but they benefit the downtown.
Right.
And that's what you have to look at, is that, yeah, it might not help me per se, but I'm not the only business down here that I need to worry about. We need to worry about other businesses. So there's tons of great events like Hot Night in the City, you know, any of the Brew Loops events, the basketball event that we did last year that are great for us. But like,
Right.
does a sidewalk sale help my business? Not necessarily. There might be some residual stuff from that, but that's going to help the retail people, right? And anything that's going to go to bring people downtown and make them enjoy our downtown and see what our downtown is like is great for everyone downtown.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I think is the benefit of the association and volunteering in general. Like, I was fortunate enough to know that, like, I came from people that, you know, were mentors to me that were always like, you need to give back to the community. And you're not always in a place that you can give back money to certain things, but you can give time and volunteer and help other people and mentor other people like I was mentored. And I think that's part of why I volunteer as much as I do, because I was fortunate enough to have these people teach me that, hey, you're fortunate enough to do well, but in order to make everyone do well, you have to give back some of that to help all these people.
So it's like the collective win across the board, you know, being a part of the board, or, you know, with the downtown, everyone wins. There's naturally going to be some spill off as to us winning as well.
Yeah.
And same goes for the community, I guess. You give in, everyone wins, everyone's stronger because of it.
Yeah.
So let's speak on the community side and the volunteer side. What are you a part of? So what are you not a part of?
I've started to realize I can't do everything. So I've started to be like, hey, instead of being a part of 5 or 6 different things, I need to focus on 2 or 3 and really be a part of that. And so as president of the Downtown Business Association, it's been really great. I love what Carl and his team are doing.
Yeah.
You know, they're very inclusive of taking ideas from everyone and working. And you know, not only is Carl, our executive director, I consider him to be a good friend. I love talking to him about different things. I love the way that him and his team have stepped up during all of this COVID stuff. They've done a great job of at the beginning just getting information out to people and letting us know, like, this is what's going on. Because like we all kind of thought, oh, we're going to be shut down for a month and we're going to be back.
Yeah.
And then you started reading information and you started getting stuff, and Carl was pointing out these are the things, and then you're just like, we're in this
is a serious thing. Yeah.
This isn't going to be over. And even then we thought, 2 or 3 months. And then you're like, no. And every time he read something or every time he was a part of a call, he passed it on to all of us. And
yeah.
I think they did a great job with that. And now that we're trying to come out of this and we're showing the Downtown Cares program, and
yeah,
they're doing a phenomenal job of, you know, trying to get people back out downtown.
Yeah. Shout out to Carl, Sam, the whole team there.
Yeah. They're all doing
we
a really
appreciate
good
you.
job. Yeah.
So part of that, I know you've been a part of the Broncos for what seems like quite a long time.
Yeah, that was lucky. 13 seems to be the number. I was with them for 12 to 13 years, and that was fantastic. And it's fun going to games now and not having to be doing everything.
Worry about everything.
And, you know, I wish them all the best. And
yeah.
You know.
Well, I did play for the Broncos when you were a part of that, and I was so blown away for how much effort and just time you put into that program to build it and make it what it is today. So I want to take a moment to thank you for putting that time in, because football obviously has been a big part of my life, and we know we're coaching at the high school level, but having something locally that people can graduate to, I think is just such a incredible thing for our community. So thanks for you.
I appreciate that. And part of it for me is that, like, you know, even if these kids don't play at that level, it's part of enhancing the whole football vibe in Kamloops as a whole.
No doubt.
And it's really nice to see that there seems to be a bit of a resurgence. And I know last year South Cam was the only team, but I feel like this year, if there was going to be a season, Westside was going to come back. And
absolutely.
And I think if we could have the crosstown rivalry again, it would be phenomenal to have it, because those are some of the best memories I had, not only when I was in high school, but growing up and going to watch those games as a kid, and
no doubt
seeing how those teams competed against each other. And it's so funny to me, because it's like growing up, it was like, you went to Westside, we're not friends, right?
Yeah.
Like you grew up with these football rivalries. And
yeah.
then, you know, when I was 19, I got invited to play in the Snow Bowl, and you meet all these guys from Westside that you hated your whole life because they were from the crosstown school.
Right.
And now I look back on it and like, some of these guys are some of my best friends.
Right.
You know, that was how I got involved with being part of the Broncos, is that I met Stefan at Snow Bowl, and
right.
And he thought, you know, I'd be a valuable asset, and then he decided to move on and kind of left things in my hand to kind of run on, and was still a supporter over all the years. But I mean, like, it was just that camaraderie. And I just remember, like, we'd be on road trips, and it was, you know, you'd have that separation of the West Side guys and the Cam High guys, and you'd be talking in the vans, and it would be like, but we were all outnumbered. There was only a couple of us Cam High guys. And then later on, it was more Cam High guys and less West Side guys. And yeah, it's just funny how it's like, you know, I've been out of high school since '94, and you still have those rivalries. And no matter what happens, like, kind of goes back to the South Cam High thing. And I'd sit around with these guys, and they'd talk smack about, well, like, this player did this and this guy did this and blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, yeah, well, we had 5 championships. Where's yours?
Yeah.
And Nick Kushneruk, who's an old school West Side guy, he was a teacher at the time, and I didn't know anything about what was going on. Like, I was in my own little bubble and wasn't as community minded at that age when that was kind of going down. And he comes up to me one night and he's like, hey, you may have had 5 championships, but at least my school exists. And I was just like, son of a gun. Like, I just wanted to, like, hit him right there. And I remember the next day I went to go see Olthius, like the next day, and I was like, "What's
Right.
going on here?" And he was just like, "Oh, like the school district and the schools, they've made this decision." And I remember buying jerseys.
Right.
Like he had a whole bunch of old jerseys
Yeah.
there, and I was like, "Whatever you want for them." I think I bought like 7 or 8 of them, and I just gave them to all the, like, if I could remember their numbers of my buddies, I was like,
Right.
"I bought your jersey. Do you want it? It would cost me
Oh,
25
respect,
bucks or
dude.
whatever it was." And it was like, yeah. So it was really cool when you guys did the alumni night,
Yeah.
and we could all buy jerseys, and like I think I got like 14 guys to buy jerseys, and
Yeah.
brought them out. Like when I went out to Saskatoon for nationals that year, I remember I brought Jason Ventnor his jersey, and
Cool.
like did a lot of that kind of stuff, and it was really cool. And like Scott Rintoul from Sportsnet, like he was our quarterback, and like you have all these different people that grew up here.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it was really cool to see that event go off and how it went off and how everyone loved it, and it was such a great night.
Yeah.
For everyone, and it was, and the right team won, of course, so that
Yeah.
was even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your appreciation for that, because I think that was one of the most heartbreaking things. Obviously, graduating from South Cam, I still have a little bit of pride in it, but my connection to the school, just because of how short-lived that was, isn't as deep. Even as JP, like I felt maybe a little bit more to JP, but to not have any alumni support, but still be one of the larger schools in town, was really heartbreaking for JP and I, when it comes to coaching and getting people out, because like you said, like going and seeing a South Cam football game is still like really, it's great ball, it's great coaching, there's still a lot of that, and to not have that alumni support, was sad. But then seeing people come back around and understand that, like, yes, it may not be the same name, but we're taking 2 very long histories and, putting them together.
And the fact that last year they were the only school, it was really neat going to your playoff game. And I remember, like, hey, I'm coming into work late, I want to go watch this game, and just seeing people that were there, and I was like, oh, like, you're here watching the game, like, do you have a kid here? And they're like, no, like, it's the only high school football left. So they made the playoffs. So I played in this era, and it wasn't just Cam High guys, it was Westside guys. It was guys that I knew that went to NorCam that played football,
Right.
that, for whatever reason, they all came to watch that game, and
Cool.
it was kind of really cool. And I remember looking at it being like, oh, there's a lot of fan support for this. So I thought it was really nice to see that. Right.
That's great. All good things. So I guess to that community, are you part of anything I don't know of out there in the world?
Well, the other big thing that I really have been putting time in is the RAH Foundation and the
Right.
new RAH campaign for the hospital. And
Yeah.
again, that's near and dear to me because I have elderly parents, and my dad was in the hospital last year. My mom was in the hospital a couple of years ago.
Right.
Then the job that our hospital does has been phenomenal, and like the care that we got from doctors and nurses was really impressive to me.
Yeah.
And I had actually started volunteering because I knew that there was going to be a time that I was going to have elderly parents, and I started volunteering before they actually started using the hospital. So for me, it was really interesting to see that as, like, you can go to the meetings, you can hear about how everything works, and you like, they do a really good job as teaching us as board members how the hospital works and how it functions. And there's seminars that you go to just so you can learn. And Heidi and her team at the hospital have done a great job, because it's not just about fundraising, it's about what are you fundraising for. And so they bring in a cardiologist to talk about that kind of stuff. They bring in the NICU people, because they're like, well, we need this machine to help save babies, but this is how your fundraising dollars are going to go towards that machine, sort of thing.
Right.
And it was interesting to see all that care, and then actually be a part of it when my dad had a stroke and when my mom was in the hospital. And it was like, wow, like, you're making a difference. And now it's even better because we get to see this building going up. And that's going to revolutionize how we do medical care in Kamloops. Is going to offer so many different options. And the big thing that I'm excited about is private patient rooms, because the old hospital was bursting at the seams. And like my dad was in a room with 4 other people, and my mom was in a room where she could hear everyone around her. So it was hard for her to sleep at night. And knowing that if they do go back in now, they're going to have a private room, and by 2022 that'll hopefully help recover people, because sometimes you just need that peace and quiet.
Yeah, it's stressful.
Yeah.
It's stressful not to have that.
Yeah.
Right on. So when it comes to the giving back portion, and even on the time front, you do so much of that, and then you're also an entrepreneur and run couple businesses in town. Have you found much bridge between them, or, you know, like how, to me, I think there's so many people doing business in town that aren't as community minded. And I think they could make a huge difference just because of their networks and their connections. What's your feeling on that?
You know, it's not for everyone though, right? Like I love, like before I was like, well, I have to volunteer for everything. And I've learned now that like I can't, like I'm just not going to do everything right if I spread myself too thin. And,
yeah.
And I having this new business now that we're opening with Fiore Fresco, and then having the restaurant to run, and like even that, like it's the one positive that has come out of COVID is that, you know, we waited 2 years to get our business open, and the week we kind of get to the finish line that we're going to have 2 businesses open, COVID hits and the Commodore shuts down.
Right.
And what that enabled us to do, and the unfortunate thing was we had a whole staff hired, we were ready to go, and what that enabled us to do is like, well, we're not going to bring in staff, we're just going to work it ourselves. And it was this huge learning curve of learning a whole new business.
Right.
So that was fantastic on that end, is that like, you know, I've spent 3 months learning that business and learning how to do things. And
right.
when the Commodore does eventually open, I'll know that like I can troubleshoot things, because there's so many things you do at the Commodore that you just know how to do it.
Yeah.
And you just figured it out.
Built into your DNA.
Yeah, but you just figured it out. And like,
yeah.
And now that's the same sort of thing over there. There's new things that you have to learn that if I was doing 2 businesses, it would have stressed me out.
Right.
But again, though, like, you know, I'm the 2 big things that I volunteer for are the Downtown Business Association, because it means a lot to me, and the hospital because it means a lot to me. And,
right.
you know, you can help do other things. Like I helped run a raffle for you guys, but
yeah.
I couldn't really devote more time to helping you guys out because I just don't think I would do it right. And that does you guys a disservice. Right. But again, like some people that they're so entrenched in their business that they don't have the ability to figure out, well, how do you divvy up your time?
Yeah.
And, you know, they work on their business, but they also have families and they have to deal with their family stuff. So you can't knock someone for not doing something.
Yeah.
Because I know for me, it's easy for me to deal with all this stuff because I'm single, and I've been single for a long time, and, you know, you date, but I don't have kids that I have to take to soccer practice or hockey practice or pick up from daycare and do all those things. And that's been an eye-opening thing for me, is that like Chris has 1 kid and sorry, Chris is my business partner. And like when he had a kid, it changes the whole dynamic. And it's, you know, being the single guy, it's just like, well, like if he wants to spend time with his kid, I'll do anything I can to give him that opportunity to do it. But I think about it, I'm like, well, like, you know, I go to this meeting, like I go to work, and then I go to this meeting, and then I go to this meeting, and then I do this volunteer work, and I do all this. And I'm like, if I had a kid, there's no way I could function and do all of that, you know. So
for those that are single or casually dating and do have time, how would you suggest going about finding ways to give back to the community?
Everyone is always looking for help in whatever way, shape, or form. And I, you know, can start out as just a simple email to finding an association that you want to help out with. Right. And, you know, like Heart and Stroke, BC Cancer, all those different things. And, you know, like another great example of a great business person from downtown that gives back is Anthony Solituro from Viva and Jardines. Yeah. And puts on the pink ribbon ball, and the amount of time and effort that goes into organizing that is
it's stupid.
It's insane to me. And
he's a champ.
Yeah. But then you go to the event, and it's like, to me, it's one of the highlight events of the year. And to the point where like, I was just like, when he brought it back, I was mad because I always had football games on those nights. And it was a benefit of not being in the football community last year, was that like, hey, pink ribbon's back, I can go. And I like, it's such a great event to be a part of and to see all the different people and how many different people from around that it brings in. So maybe you don't have time to sit on his committee, but maybe you can volunteer that day to help decorate. So you contact Anthony, or, you know, people who care about animals, like contact the SPCA and say, hi, how do I help you do something like that? The Kamloops Hospice Society is a great thing. Like, it's just finding, I think it's something that you should be passionate about something or have a reason to wanting to be a do. Because I think if you're just doing it to do it, it's not necessarily great. Yeah. I think there should be some kind of a passion of yours or have some meaning to you, because then I think it just means that much more to you to want to do it.
Yeah. Respect. So let's talk about your new business. So tell me about it.
It's phenomenal. It's really interesting to see, like, with everything that it took to get open, with how weird and ridiculous the rules are. So what kind of business are we talking about here? We've opened Fiore Fresco Cannabis. Well, it's just Fiore Fresco, but being that myself and my 2 partners are Italian, it means fresh flowers in Italian, if anyone was wondering why we chose that name.
It's fitting, yeah.
but yeah, it's just really neat to do something new and learning new things every day.
Yeah.
Like there isn't a day where it's just like I'm not learning something new. And even like at the Commodore, like you still learn new things, but it's not every day.
Right.
And now it's like every day there's something new that you're learning and how to work it. And like, you know, like I didn't really know a lot about the product. You know, I kind of got into it because it was kind of Chris's passion play and he wanted to do it. And I was like, hey, like I feel like this is going to be a solid business decision.
Yeah.
But just learning about how the different products are made and like, you know, the differences between CBD and THC and indicas and sativas. And it was really funny to me. And like, this is going to sound silly right now. And it's going to show you how much I didn't know, but like we were sitting there doing interviews. And one of the questions that Chris asked was like, what's an indica? What's a sativa? And I was like, under my breath, not letting these guys know I didn't know anything about it. I was like, I don't know. Like when the interview answered the questions, I was like, oh yeah, okay, now that makes sense. Indica and the couch. Yeah. Like I get it. But the other things is like learning the variances because it's a crop. Yeah. Right? Like no 2 carrots are the same. No 2 tomatoes are the same. Well, no 2 plants are going to be the same. So like, I didn't, when we first started it, we'd be like, well, this type of bud has a 14 to 21% variance. And so like you'd get it in one time and it's 18%. And the next time it's 20%.
It's a little different than liquor where it's
like consistent. On. Like, you know, you're buying this vodka, it's 17%. You buy this whiskey, it's 22%. Like, so that was a big thing for me. And, you know, Chris had a vision of how he wanted the store and Chris and Justin were like, we want to display things and we want it so people can come in and see it. And I love that like, I love telling that to customers that when they come in, it's like, you're not getting a sheet. You're not getting an order guide on the screen. You get to go to a cabinet and see, this is the weed I want to buy. It was batched on this date and this is the percentage it is. And when that one sells out and the next percentage comes in, we rotate it and we put the new product in there. So we're always rotating it, always showing you what it is. And people really gravitate towards our store because of that. We've developed in 3 short months, we've got a ton of regulars already that they come in and they're like, I just like the way it's displayed and I like the way it's set up.
Right.
And it's just neat that like Chris had the foresight to know that, let alone that we set it up that way. And
so can people find you behind the?
You're there because of COVID, the Commodore not opening. It's the 3 of us are working every day, and like, and that's,
I would have never thought to see you behind a cannabis counter, bro.
That was never going to be the plan. Like I was always like, oh, I'll do the back end stuff. I'll pay bills. Like I'll do ordering maybe, like kind of like how I was doing with the Commodore. And I was like, I'll do all this stuff. And then it's like I said, now that I'm working every day, you're learning different things about different products, and
I think that's key. That's actually a stance I've taken for a long time about my businesses is knowing it through and through, so that you can, when you are hiring people, you know exactly what to tell them, you know exactly where to point them. You have a level of understanding to know if they're doing the best job that they can be. Yeah. And I think that's what's thrown you into the mix. It's like now you. Who would have thought that you'd be, you know, telling people, well, this is indica right here.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like when I worked in finance, and we financed wrecked vehicles, and so snowmobiles, ATVs, dirt bikes, things like that.
Okay.
I've never been on one of those in my life. Right. But because I was like, well, if I'm helping this person finance, or if I'm asking this person questions, I kind of want to know what I'm doing. So you just studied, and it was like, well, I know what this is in a dirt bike and 2-stroke, 4-stroke. Like, just asking guys that had those gears, I would ask them like all these questions. So I could have conversations with people so that, you know, I knew what I was talking about. And I remember talking to a guy one day and he was just like, oh, so like what kind of, like, I was talking about his track of his snowmobile. I was like, oh, you got a 144, like that's a good length and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what do you ride? I'm like, I've never been on one in my life. And he's like, I never would have guessed that because you know what you're talking about. And it's kind of been, you know, after about a month and a half into the shop opening, and, you know, I was just, you know, it's just telling people different things. And like, I don't smoke a lot of weed, and I'm not going to lie to someone and tell people that like I smoke, and I can tell you this, but I can tell you I talked to this customer because I asked the customer to give me feedback on what they're doing. Right. And I write notes, and like, you should see my phone. I got a ton of notes on all these different products of what people have come back to me and said. And I can say, they're like, well, have you tried this? I'm like, no, I haven't tried it, but we had a customer who tried it and said, this is what works for them. Right. It's the same thing with like the CBD stuff, because I'm big on the CBD. Like the ironic thing about all of this COVID stuff is I'm probably the healthiest I've ever been. I've got normal sleeping patterns. Right. I'm not playing any sports. I'm not pulling anything. Like I'm not getting hurt. Like it's crazy to me. So like I used to take a CBD pill for after soccer. or I would take it to help me sleep, or I take a CBD oil to help me sleep. Well, it's like, I don't work those late nights on the weekend anymore. So I'm pretty clockwork. Like I go to bed at a certain time. I wake up at a certain time. Like unless I stay up to watch a movie late one night, like I'm getting good sleep. I'm recovering and stuff like that. But you're able to pass that information on to people because there's a huge market for these CBD products. People who don't want to get high, but they want the benefits of that marijuana.
I'm with you. I'm one of those people.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I'm not a big smoker, maybe once in a blue moon sort of thing like that now, I hadn't been before, but I kind of feel like sometimes
you're the plug now.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to know. But I do know that like, I like what certain CBD things do for me. And, I love how like edibles are a huge thing now and seeing the people that are coming in and like, it's funny, you get these people that have been smoking weed their whole lives and they know what they want when they're coming in, but you have this other crew of people, like the next tier is people that now that it's legal, they're wanting to do it. And then you have this next crew of people that are like, well, like we kind of want to try it.
Right.
Like they don't want to become regular users, but they want to try it. And then you have this other group of people that are like, we want to know the medical benefits of these things.
Right.
And we're not a medical store, so I can't tell you what it is, but like, this is what I would recommend for, this is how I would take it for my pain, but go check with your doctor. Don't buy this today. Right. And people respect that because they're like, well, you're not lying to me then. You're saying, hey, this is what I think this could do for you.
Yeah.
But I mean, like with some elderly people, like you're taking heart medications, you're taking all these different things, and does taking CBD mess with that?
Right.
So I wouldn't feel comfortable telling you to take that unless you know what's going on.
Yeah.
So take this product, go talk to your doctor, take a picture of it, go talk to your doctor, see if he recommends it. And then they come back. Yeah. And they come back and they're like, hey, the doctor says I can't do this, but I can do this.
Right.
Do you have this? And then it's like, perfect. We can help you out with it.
Cool.
Right? So that's kind of neat.
So when it comes to what you've learned in the cannabis industry, have you learned anything that you can take away and apply it to other businesses, or are there takeaways from that industry or the creating a retail shop that could be applicable elsewhere?
The big thing for me is I treat it like I treated the Commodore, and there's so much competition out there. And from the day one that we opened the Commodore, Chris and I have always said, do what we do and do it well and not worry about what other people are doing, right? Because if you just concentrate on what you're doing and you're going to do it well, people are going to want to be a part of that and they're going to want to be in it. And it's the same thing with the cannabis, because you can order off websites of illegal products and you can go to the reserves and there's different stores, and then you have to fight with the government and you have to do all this stuff. And we're taking that same thing. Don't care what anybody else is doing, but this is how we're going to run our business. We're going to be personable. We're going to be here. We're going to be here to answer these questions for people. And I think that we're doing well because people just like, they don't want to hear you complain about the government. They don't want to hear you complain about illegal stuff.
That's not what they're coming in for.
That's not what they're coming in for.
Yeah.
They're coming in to buy products. And like, if we don't have something, hey, you know what? Go check the government store because they have a larger buying power, so they might carry something that we don't have, or like Leafly. Do you know what Leafly is?
No.
It's a website that you can go to, and it'll tell you how many stores are in your town, and you can type in a product. Where can I find it in Kamloops? And it'll tell you where to go. And we get a lot of customers that are using it. But I mean, like, hey, we don't have it, or we don't have it in stock. But if you want that particular product, go to Leafly, check it out, see if there's somebody else nearby. Let's all work together to make this industry better,
to grow the industry. Yeah. So I guess you're taking more so the lessons that you've learned just doing business and putting it into this business.
Yeah. And again, like it's, markups and different things like that. It's different in retail as opposed to so I'm learning a lot about that, and it's opening my eyes that, well, like maybe there's going to be a retail opportunity in the future that I would feel more comfortable doing, because I've always shied away from retail because I didn't know anything about it. I never even worked in a store of retail in my life. Like it was just never something I did. So it's like learning all this new stuff that I think I could take that away and move it into something else.
Gotcha. First of all, I'm happy that you have been able to work during this, because not a lot of people can say that.
Well, but it's not really working.
I hear you.
It's like I'm working the shop, but like I'm not making any money. So it's like, because like that first year, it's all about building up inventory and
of course
paying off the debt of what it took for us. So for us, it's like, like we're trying to live off of minimal amounts of money here, and it's different. But I mean, like
but at least you have been able to be open.
The big thing for me is that I would have gone insane because I've always been a part of like a busy guy. I'm always at a meeting. I'm always at something. And I think that first month when we weren't doing anything and everyone's trying to do things through Zoom, and it was like the only thing that was making it through my day was that I'd go to the store and I'd get to see people, because other than that, you're at home and that's it. Like I wasn't even going to see my parents because, you know, being elderly, I didn't want to run the risk of getting them sick. So it was like, what did I have? It was like, well, I had the opportunity to go to work and see people and talk about these products. So I think that really helped in that aspect of learning those things. Right?
Yeah, I'm an introvert myself, so I was totally fine with not seeing anyone, but I completely empathize with those of you that are just operate fully in a social sphere.
Yeah.
It's a new world for you. Yeah. So getting out, you know, things are opening up. How does business look for you? What you know, like what are you putting your eggs in different baskets or focusing on different things?
Like the big thing for me and my partners right now, it's just about like, well, let's weather this.
Yeah.
That's all you can really do. Like, you know, like, are we busier because of COVID? Are we not as busy because of COVID? Is, you know, the Commodore shut down? Like, you know, when you were, you know, we were going through this insanity of like, when do we get to reopen? When do we get to reopen? And then when the government finally said, hey, like nightclubs and the casino are going to be the last thing that open, and concerts are going to be the last thing. Like, you're not going to be able to open until there's a vaccine. So at least that gave us the clarity of saying, okay, well, like, we know this is going to be a long time.
Yeah.
Let's take our time and, you know, what are we going to do? So, you know, there's going to be, when we reopen the Commodore, there's going to be changes. It's going to be different than what it was before. And there's going to be a new normal. And, you know, and we have exciting changes coming that I think are going to be great. And we're working on those things right now. And,
cool.
But I mean, like, it's so drastically different. Like, even just going out for dinner now is like, you have to follow arrows and you have to follow all this different protocols. And like, do you go, like, I don't know, like, I don't want to go to a bathroom in public anywhere because I don't know, you know, how is this working? Or like, you know, it's just different. It's just, it's a different vibe. It's a different feeling. And it's, you know, like, we're resilient. I think that we're lucky to be in a city like Kamloops where people support other local businesses and people are going out. Like, you know, even when I was trying to save money, you were trying to support these other local businesses downtown. Mm-hmm. So like buying dinner from Peter's Pasta and Mitt's Kitchen and Carlos and Kelly O'Brien's, and like Crooked Cow just opened. So it was great. I ran over there and tried to buy a couple things off of her, but it's like, you know, am I buying the things I would have bought 6 months ago?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No,
I hadn't bought gummy bears before. And then when Emily opened up, I was like, I'll go and support.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and like I bought a hat and I bought a mug and like, I mean, like a coffee mug. 6 months ago, I would never buy a coffee mug. I would never think about it. Well, now it's just like, okay, well, like I can't go to Starbucks every day to buy a coffee because I just can't. Like I'll go broke.
Yeah.
So now, you know, I had an espresso machine at home and I used to make an espresso or Americano in the morning when I had breakfast. And then on the way to work, I'd go buy a coffee somewhere. Well, now it's just like, well, now I need a coffee mug. I have this great espresso machine at home.
Right.
I can make coffee at home.
Right.
And just bring it to work with me. Right. And
so that's one of the fundamental changes is that you're bringing coffee with you.
I bring coffee to work with me. And I like, you know, it's like I still eat out because I love that social aspect of it. But I've made more meals at home in the last 3 months than I have in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? And like, I'm a good cook. Like
you got to figure it out.
I got to figure it out. And I've always like, you know, like I was never a big fan of leftovers. And now it's just like, well, I'm going to cook this because then I know that like I can eat it for the next 2 days. And then or like if like when I get off work at 7, I don't really want to go home and take the time to cook, and especially because like after COVID, you'd come home, strip down, go have a shower.
Yeah. By
the time you get out and start ready to cook at 7:30, 8 o'clock. Yeah. So now it's just like, well, I made dinner on Sunday, and the 2 nights that I worked this week, I got dinner ready to go.
Right. God, new world. Yeah. So, I mean, a huge shout out to Emily for opening a business in the middle of a pandemic, because that's not an easy thing to do. Mm-hmm. What would be your suggestions for people looking to start businesses, or, you know, do you have any thoughts on the matter?
I don't know exactly what they're going to be, but there's going to be opportunities to be had. Yeah. I think that this is going to kind of, I don't know how to say this politically correct, but like there's going to be businesses that aren't going to survive this. Yeah. And the ones that do are going to do it because of perseverance and hard work, and they're going to figure out a way to do this. Yeah. And it's going to make their businesses better in the long run. Yeah. And, you know, like we're going to be prepared for the next time something like this happens. Yeah. And I think that like, you know, like it's really tough to see, but like when I look at the businesses downtown, like, you know, like with Terra closing, and that was determined before COVID. And same thing with like Orange closing. But you never want to see businesses close down here.
No,
like Terra was
a
staple for as long as it was. And like Orange closing was heartbreaking to me because we grew up with those guys.
No doubt.
What I mean? Like when you were a kid and like
B&B was my shit.
Yeah, like you would just go in and you would buy these things. And like you always knew that Coach or Kwani were going to be there. And like you saw those guys and you saw the work that they put into it. And you know, like you saw how they gave back to the community.
Absolutely,
right? And the last day, you know, I went in there and, you know, brought the boys a case of beer and said my goodbyes sort of thing. And like, you know, you're going to see them around town and stuff, but it's not going to be just as easy as going down. And I don't know if you know Blair Harper who bought Motivo downtown. And another great addition to downtown Kamloops. And Blair posted a video, the guys kind of walking out of the store one last time and turning all the lights off. And I kind of, like, I had a little tear in my eye because, like, those guys were a big part of our business. Like, those Orange parties we used to throw were epic. Right. Epic part. Like, and, like, I've been in this industry for a long time. Yeah. There was never a party that was better than what those guys brought. Right. Our white parties, the 2 or 3 white parties that we did were legendary. Yeah. Legendary. Like, those are, like, I've been to clubs in Vancouver. I've been to, like, parties everywhere, whatever it is, and I don't ever remember having a vibe because it wasn't just a party. It was a party with all your friends. Yeah. And, like, I have pictures of one of the white parties and looking at the picture and, like, you know, all the guys.
Everyone was a friend.
Everyone was a homie. Yeah. And, like, everyone was your friend. And, like, you were so jacked to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And, like,
I think that's something that they did so well is that the retail that they provided was to young and old. So, you know, that was like high school for me. I would always go down to B&B. That's where I got all my stuff. And then you get older and they're still like just as cool, but you can drink with them. And then it's like, this is like, I feel like I know you for forever. Yeah. And it just makes everything you actually feel like, wow, this is like what a community can feel like when you're dealing with those kind of people.
Yeah. And that was the thing. They built a community in Kamloops. Like, Pilsner sales in Kamloops were non-existent before those guys moved here from Saskatoon. And I just remember like it was just like, man, like Pilsner is what you bought when, like, you know, you had no money and you didn't want to drink anything. And then it was like all of a sudden it was like all their stuff was branded with Pilsner. And it was Pilsner this, Pilsner that. And I just remember thinking, like, these two guys are gods. Like they probably just made Labatt's numbers in Kamloops for the next 5 years just off of everyone drinking Pilsner. Yeah. And when they made the switch to like Coors Light, because they had a homie that was working for Coors Light, it was like, man, Coors Light sales start going through the roof. Like, it was crazy to me. And the loyalty that you learn from that kind of stuff and knowing how you should, and that's the disheartening thing for me in today's society. That's one of the, like, retail shops, restaurants, these different things. There isn't a lot of that loyalty anymore because now everyone just is like, hey, I'm going to go online and buy this, or I'm going to go online and buy that. And that's the big thing for me is that, like, you know, Orange was always my first choice. If I needed to buy a hat or if I needed to buy, you know, like a lot of the time I would just buy my 2 unders down there or like my sacks or whatever it was and stuff like that. And they were always my first choice. I never bought anything online. And you try and relate that to other stores in Kamloops. You know what I mean? Like I went, you know, now I go buy my sacks from Jardines. And, and it's just like this.
So you're a big sacks guys.
Oh, I love them. Well, yeah. But I mean, like that's the thing. Like, you know, it was nice to go in and support Emily at Crooked Crown. It's nice to buy lunch from Mitt's Kitchen. It's even nicer now that we can walk in there and sit down again and have that atmosphere. Yeah. And it's, you know, trying to support local as much as possible. And I just don't think people understand what having a downtown core means to not only the downtown, but to your whole city as a whole.
Yeah, the impact on families and people.
Yeah. And you know, and that's part of the reason why the landscape is changing so much is because people don't have that loyalty anymore. If they can save 50 cents by ordering it off of Amazon. Right. And like, that's the biggest thing. Like you know, of course we're all going to order things online because if you can't get it in town, you know, you want to get it. You don't always have time to go somewhere else to get it. But, you know, if you have an opportunity to spend your money locally, you know, if you're going to buy a car, try and buy it in Kamloops. If you're going to fly out of Kamloops so our airport gets, you know, the benefits of it. Because when I was young, and this goes back to when I worked for the Downtown Business Association, there's a gentleman named Robert Fine that worked for what's now Venture Kamloops, but then it was called Kedco, and we were sharing office space. I remember talking to him, and I was just like, oh, and I never really flew. Like, it was not something I did because you know, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, right? And I remember listening to him talk one day, and he was just like, everyone should be flying out of Kamloops. And I just said to him, I was like, well, like, you know, I don't fly, but I know people, they'll drive to Kelowna because they're going to save $200 or $300. He's like, well, every time you drive to Kelowna to fly, Kelowna gets those numbers. Kelowna gets those benefits.
Yeah.
So your airport here in Kamloops isn't going to benefit from it.
Right.
So now, anytime I can, I want to fly out of Kamloops and
Right.
help develop that. And it's just little things like that. Like you might pay $100 more, and I get it. Not everyone can afford to do that and do that stuff, but like you're going to benefit your town. And that's everything that I see, everything that I do is all about what can we do to make Kamloops a better place.
Through that lens.
Yeah. You know, and you know, when I ran for, and that's, you know, people ask me, are you going to run for city council again? And I'm like, you know what, I might one day, but right now I feel like the whole reason I wanted to run for council was because I felt like we needed to make a change in this city. We needed to do things in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think we're doing a good job of that. But I also realize I don't need to be on council to help my city.
To have that
I can
impact.
volunteer with these different organizations. I can help different people. You can mentor different people. And I think that's what we need to be doing is trying to focus on our city and trying to focus on everything we can do to make Kamloops better.
Right. Well, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. I wish it wasn't such a unique perspective, but I appreciate the fact that you champion that idea of keeping it local and thinking, you know, putting actual substantial thought into the impact that those purchases can have. You know, I will say that through COVID, I don't know, it seems like a lot of the bandwidth in the social spheres, like there's a lot of attention on the fact that shop local, help local. Like I think it did kind of reposition a lot of minds. But then in the same breath, you see how many Amazon packages are sitting in front of, like the Amazon guys have never been busier.
Yeah.
So like, how does one champion that? How does one spread that word, or do you just live it?
I think you just got to have that conversation with people. Like when you're talking to people, and it's just like, oh, like, you know, like, have you been to Crooked Crown? Have you got, like, I keep using Emily because I just went back in there. So,
right.
But I mean, like, it was a cool little shop to go to.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, when I kind of heard that Amy was shutting down her shop, because I thought her shop was a really cool shop to be
Yeah,
part of.
absolutely.
And to hear that it was closing, it was like, oh, this is sad. But then, you know, Emily popped up and,
Yeah.
you know, and just trying to talk to people and explain, like us having this conversation, hopefully this message gets out to people so that they can see it. And it can be like, hey, let's support people that are supporting people in Kamloops.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, like that, Amazon's not giving any money to anyone in Kamloops.
No.
Amazon's not supporting, they're supporting families in their markets, but.
Yeah. The impact too, I think, which is incredible. You help local businesses. Well, who are the people that are often supporting local events? It's like those businesses. Yeah. They're the ones sponsoring events. They're the ones sponsoring family events and new pop-up ideas. But they can only support those community-driven events if they have the support from the community.
Yeah, and it's little things. Like I bought a vehicle from Kamloops Ford Lincoln because they sponsored the football team.
Right.
So it was like this is my opportunity to give back to them. And I was like, yeah, I could drive to Vancouver and go do all this stuff and save some money, but those guys gave to us, so let's give back to them. Same thing with Zimmer Wheaton. My dad bought his truck from Zimmer because they were a sponsor of the store and stuff like that. And it's you know, like if more and more people thought that way, and it wasn't just about saving a little bit of money, it would be beneficial to helping our community grow and become prosperous. Yeah. And you know, it's little things like that. And the big thing for me coming out of COVID is seeing how people supported people. And people had no problem driving to go pick up their orders of food to help support these restaurants and keep them alive. Yeah. And that meant so much to me because unfortunately we couldn't open. You know, we don't really make a lot of that money on our food. So, you know, we debated it. Like, do we reopen? Do we try and do this kind of stuff? And it's just, it just doesn't work with our business model. Right. But so you supported the restaurants downtown. And the fact that like these people were like, hey, we'll give you 20%. Instead of me giving 20% to DoorDash or to all these people, I'd rather give it to you as the consumer, give you a discount, but just come down and pick it up from me. Yeah. And the amount of people that did that, like the amount that the city of Kamloops, you know, everyone talks about how the city of Kamloops is not progressive and they're not willing to do all these things. Well, they stepped up in a big way. They set up those parking stalls in front of those restaurants so people could just pull up. And because that would have been a hindrance if you're driving around downtown. Like in the beginning, there was ample parking, but now to have those spots so people can still continue to do that to help those businesses survive. Yeah. And how the patio plan and the city taking the initiative to do stuff like that and to really work on it. And I think that they found a happy medium. Like I get it, shutting down the streets impacts a lot of businesses. But, you know, if you just take out a parking stall so that people can walk around your patio, maybe that doesn't. And it's a good solution that the city has worked on with the help of the Downtown Business Association and different things. And it boggles my mind the government red tape that we have to go through on a regular basis to do stuff. But in a COVID crisis, everyone's able to do it right away.
Right. Yeah.
And
that has been noticeable.
Yeah. And so, like there are a lot of positives, right? I feel like the city of Kamloops has stepped up in a big way.
Yeah.
And I understand that like people want to get back into the parks and the city's just trying to be careful. And I get that.
Yeah.
And, slowly they're announcing how we're going to redo things, and I get it. But the thing is like, people have to realize it's not just what's near and dear to me. It's the city's trying to think of what do I do to help the whole city.
Yeah. And
it can't happen overnight, but the city has done a great job of doing things on the fly right now.
Yeah.
Like they realize the MacArthur Island is going to be closed all summer. So they're taking advantage of that, and they applied for their grants, and they're going to redo the roads on MacArthur Island, which were sorely needed.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great bonus thing that the city's able to do, is to deal with some of these things that are maybe not, going to affect as many people if we do it right now, as opposed to later on.
I think huge shout out to the city of Kamloops. It's really incredible being a part of a community that is being progressive, because there's a lot of communities out there that aren't taking advantage of. There is opportunity to be had here.
And like, I'm not a big fan of the provincial government. And
we know that.
We've talked about it. But I mean, like the fact that they've stepped up and they've changed liquor laws so that restaurants can buy wholesale pricing now.
Yeah.
Which is, we've been asking for that for years.
Right.
And they're finally saying, okay, like, and I just want to know where the bell went off, where they realized, hey, we've been kicking the crap out of small business for years.
Yeah.
And however you see it, but like, raising minimum wage, raising our taxes, taxing us on this, doing all this stuff.
Yeah. It's hard to run a business.
It's hard to run a business now, but they finally are like, well, we need to do something to help out small business.
Yeah.
So they're throwing us a bone here, which doesn't help me because I'm closed, but it's helping the restaurants that are open. So at least their margin's going to change and they can make a little bit more money in it.
Right.
But why weren't we doing this earlier?
Yeah, no doubt.
Right. That's like having these conversations and being able to talk. And that's a big thing that I've noticed with COVID, is that everyone's having conversations.
Yeah.
And, I've had the fortune, because of our role with the business association and being a leader in the community, of having, Todd Stone and Peter Millibar have organized some calls to be like, hey, what can we do to help you guys? Yeah. And Carl, like, we have a bunch of different Zoom meetings, monthly, to talk about what can we be doing to help everyone. Yeah. And we're doing all of this stuff to help everyone. And that's the biggest thing, is that everyone wants to help everyone. Yeah. Right? And that's where that's really reinforced my faith in humanity, of seeing that we're all doing things to work together to try and be better.
To that, let's keep that ball rolling. I think let's keep the conversations happening. The liquor laws being relaxed, that to me is well overdue in a million ways. So there's a shining light there, but let's not just stop. Yeah. After this COVID, let's like reassess everything that we're doing.
Well, and like, that's the thing, like when they let restaurants deliver alcohol with their foods or whatever it is. Yeah. Like, I'm a cheap wop. I probably wouldn't do that, because I know I can go cheaper if I just plan ahead and go buy my beer, buy my wine, and have it at home when I pick up my food. Yeah. But it is a convenience thing for everyone. Absolutely. No one's dying. Nothing bad is happening. No. Like, I think the problem is when they create laws, sometimes they think of the worst case scenario, and you've eased these restrictions right now, and it's like, hey, everything seems to be okay.
There isn't rioting and drunkards all over the streets.
Yeah, you're not picking up your bottle of wine and drinking it on the way home. Like, people are actually applying common sense to a lot of these new rules, and I think that's why the rules are working. Yeah.
So there's a silver lining in all this. Well, I appreciate we could chat all day, but I appreciate you coming back on, trying this again. And
hopefully this one airs and I don't have to come back.
No, we're good. Yeah. We're good. Yeah. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I hope nothing new pops up that throws this off, but we're going to turn this one around quicker. So thank you. Good luck with the cannabis side. I wish you the best. I'll definitely be stopping by for some CBD products moving forward, once my cash flow is a little bit better. Fair enough. And thank you for everything you do in this community, man. Kamloops is really lucky to have you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Jesse.
All right. Till the next time.
Till next time.
Awesome.